What is it about a character that makes them so unbearable to watch? Anytime they're in a scene, you have to fight the urge to skip to the next scene where they're not in that one. For me personally, it is when I find a character to be annoying and I do not like feeling annoyed. That is one emotion I can't deal with. So I put unlikable or bad characters into three different categories. So those are the annoying character that absolutely cannot deal with, deeply flawed, and the villain. And the shows that I'm going to be spoiling are going to be Gilmore Girls, Euphoria, and Anne with the E. I probably shouldn't be talking about Euphoria and Anne with the E in the same video, but I'm not gonna get too deep into Euphoria because honestly, that would deserve its own video, and I am sure someone already made that video. So let's start with Euphoria. I find Cassie to be extremely annoying, Maddy to be deeply flawed, and Nate is obviously a villain. So in a movie or TV show, we need a villain. We need a villain to contrast the protagonist, right? We don't expect the villain to have any redeemable qualities. However, they can be complex characters. They don't have to be one note. So Nate, he is a terrible person. There really isn't anything good about him. But you really can't truly figure out what his motivations are. He's a hyper masculine bully who seems to be struggling with his attractions. You think he likes Jules, but he doesn't want to admit it. But then it seems like he's just playing a cruel trick on her. He's been fully aware of his father being a predator since he was younger. And you wonder if he's taking on these same traits because of what he's been exposed to, or if he's just his father's son. So, yes, he is definitely a complex villain, and he and his family give, and their family dynamic, give the show a lot more depth. I actually like their storyline a lot more than the main character storyline, especially since he seems to be intertwined with each of the main characters in one way or another, like a spider web. We love to hate a good villain, right? Because I definitely love to hate Nate, but the show would not be anything without him. Now, Maddie, she is deeply flawed, and she is my favorite type of flawed character because she owns it. Like, she know who she is. She knows about her messed up characteristics, and she just embodies that. She's manipulative, she's selfish, and she is not shy about the fact that she does not want to work, and she just wants to become a trophy wife when she becomes an adult. That's what she wants to be when she grows up, a trophy wife. So my favorite scene with Maddie and what made me love her is when she showed up at a carnival dressed like she was about to go to the club. And Nate had wanted her to meet his parents because his parents were there for a chili contest. And he's like, "You are not meeting my parents dressed like that." And when Maddie realizes that Nate is really not going to introduce her to his parents, she shows up at the booth that they're at serving the chili and makes a complete scene and then knocks over the pot of chili. Like, if you're gonna be a toxic mess, just full on go for it. Just go for it. Just own it. These characters are really fun to watch, especially when they're self-aware and they just embody that deeply flawed human that they are. But I also feel like they're still able to grow, and you can see that there can be some growth in the future. And at some point, they can probably realize that some of their behaviors are not benefiting them or others. Now, Cassie. What makes Cassie annoying? When it comes to annoying characters, the actors playing them usually contribute to them being insufferable along with the characteristics and storyline of the actual character. I'm so not trying to be funny, but does Sydney Sweeney actually talk like that? Or is it just for the character? Like, I've seen her in Madam Web, and I saw her on that jeans commercial, and she definitely was really laying it on thick in the jeans commercial, but it sounds kind of fake. So I don't know if that's just a voice she gave the character, but it grates on my nerves. Like, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I'm sorry if that's really the way that she talks, but it is really annoying. And I'm sure someone finds my voice annoying, but I'm not on a TV show, okay? And people have to watch for seasons. Like, she just sounds like a complete airhead, and then she also has this vacant look in her eyes that adds to that airhead and aesthetic. And besides that fact, just as a character, I was getting so sick and tired of seeing this girl on her freaking back. Like, oh my God, it was exhausting. It's like, really? Again? Like, come on, I'm over it. Like, oh my gosh. Again, that is for another video. And worst of all, which really just made me want to like slap her off the freaking screen. The most annoying thing about her is that she has zero accountability. She takes zero responsibility for her actions. When she finally gets exposed for sleeping around with Nate and sneaking around with Nate, she uses the excuse that Nate and Maddy were broken up, as if that has anything to do with anything. That is literally so besides the point. And then when she gets confronted about it, she's just whining and crying about it. So annoying. Like, it was so satisfying when Maddy just had enough and went up on stage during that play and slapped the crap out of Cassie. Like, I promise you, I reminded that multiple times to see it again. I seriously need Cassie to have some growth next season because she is so hard to watch. And a lot of it does have to do with Sydney Sweeney playing her as a character, but it's also the fact that she takes zero accountability and she is always on her freaking back. It's just like, ugh, you're adding nothing to the show besides annoying the crap out of me. Another example of the three categories as far as like bad characters is Gilmore Girls, which I'm not going to get too deep into because I just did a video about this show and how I found the characters, some of the main characters to be annoying. So I find Lorelai to be annoying. Emily is deeply flawed, and Paris is the villain, at least in season 1. I love Paris as a villain because she is not your typical bully. She's like a nerdy bully. She decides that she does not like Rory before she even meets her and immediately puts her in her place. The moment that she feels that Rory has stepped out of line, she makes her life a living hell. She does let up for a little bit when Rory invites her and her friends to a concert, but her one-sided attraction to Tristan basically ruins that when she thinks Rory and Tristan are involved, and Rory makes it worse by telling Tristan he should take Paris on a date, which was dumb. I admit that was really, really not a good idea. So I would have been pissed about that too if I found out that happened. But either way, Paris is like crazy, but she's like really fun to watch. And honestly, the show would be a little too wholesome for my liking without Paris on that show to make Rory's life hell. Now, Emily, she is definitely a deeply flawed character, but she just really embodies it. And she just embodies that rich snob attitude. She honestly feels like a real person. Like, the way the actress plays her, she feels real, like someone you would actually come across in real life. Emily is so manipulative and condescending, and it really adds to her character and just makes her fun to watch. Like, when I was rewatching Gilmore Girls, I was just amazed at how manipulative she was when it came to Rory's birthday. Her deciding that Rory was gonna have a birthday party at her house when Rory never agreed to that. She goes ahead, plans a party, invites all these random kids from her high school, and then tries to make Rory give a speech to thank everybody, and Rory gets pissed, and then she gets mad. But then they are the ones who end up trying to make amends by inviting her to their birthday party at their house, and then she shows up like she's just too good to be there. Like, she was so offended when Rory did not wanna give that speech, but she never asked for that freaking party in the first place. So, why are they the ones trying to make amends? Like, I know she was being kinda disrespectful to her grandmother, but at the same time, it's just like, no. Like, they shouldn't be the ones to make amends. Like, Emily, you're wrong, okay? I also realized from one of the comments on my other video is that we are seeing Emily from Lorelai's perspective. We don't really know what Emily had to go through when Lorelai was a teenager. Like, we get some snippets of it. I think they did show at one point in one of the episodes, like, what happened at the time that Lorelai got pregnant and she had Rory and everything. But we are really seeing her from Lorelai's perspective, and from Lorelai's perspective, she is the villain. She is evil. She's not worthy of having a relationship with Rory. But it was pointed out that Lorelai has come to them multiple times for money, but she still doesn't let them have a relationship with Rory and only sees Rory on the holidays. So when she came over to ask for money for Chilton, and Emily was like, no, no, no. Actually, you're not just gonna get this money. What you're gonna do is you and Rory are gonna come over every Friday to have dinner with us if you want me to help pay for her school. On first sight, when you see this, like, oh wow, that's really manipulative. But no, it's really not. She's really setting a boundary and letting her know that you're not just gonna use us for money. If we're gonna be involved in Rory's school, then I want to have a relationship with my granddaughter, which is completely understandable. So, yes, she is controlling and manipulative and snobby, but at the same time, she also wants what's best for her family. And again, I'm not gonna go into too much detail about how Lorelai is annoying and how I find her annoying because that was mostly what the other video was about. But long story short, I was getting really annoyed with her trying to be witty and making jokes in almost every scene, no matter how serious the situation was. And then it also bothered me that she hardly ever takes accountability for her actions. Her making out with Rory's teacher for Paris to see and tell the whole school was why I was completely over her. And the fact that the show doesn't properly address this just makes it even worse. Like, of course, you're not gonna have perfect characters, right? But it's like a combination of things. Like, if I could take her being a bad mom, if she wasn't so annoying with the witty jokes and trying to be sarcastic and um quirky all the time and cute all the time with her little jokes, like, I could take the bad mom stuff. If you leave that, it would be watchable, but both together it's too much for me of on rewatch, which is why I couldn't rewatch the whole thing, and I stopped at season 2. Like, I felt like, okay, yeah, they kinda had that exchange, when she kissed the teacher and then Rory found out about it, they had that exchange in the stairwell, but, any other normal teenager in reality probably would have been pissed for way longer, giving their parent the, cold shoulder for some weeks. But what's the most interesting thing about my viewpoint on Lorelai is that I did not feel this way the first time I watched the show. Like, I had no problems with her the first time I watched the show. So I do think that it is me just being more mature when I'm rewatching it, just being older and more mature and wiser and kind of seeing things for what they are more so now than when I was like a lot younger. I also think, and this is obviously a theme that I see with Cassie from Euphoria as well as with Lorelai, is that I just don't like characters who don't take accountability for their crap and they are always playing like the victim. In playing the victim in a sense, like, they act like they're clueless about what they're doing and the harm they're causing to other people. So, like, with Cassie being a crybaby and Lorelai deflecting or trying to put things on Rory. I can't it's too much. It's like the annoying characters won't own their crap or who they are versus, like, the ones who I feel like just deeply flawed. They really just kinda embody who they are in a sense, if that makes sense. Now, there is one character from a show who on paper would seem very annoying. She talked way too much sometimes. She can be really overdramatic. She's not always socially aware. And she has a pretty bad temper, even though, the people who are on the other end of it usually deserve it. But she is so far from annoying, and I absolutely love this character. And with an E is one of my favorite shows, and Anne is probably one of my favorite characters. If you never watched Anne with an E, it's based off the Anne of Green Gables book series. Anne is a 13-year-old orphan who goes to live with the Cuthberts to help on their farm. Anne is super chatty, and when Matthew Cuthbert picks her up, it's implied that it's a pretty long trip, and she talks basically the whole time. but she is pretty self-aware about how talkative she is. Her dramatic and imaginative nature makes her come across whimsical, and this rubs off on everyone around her and even the viewers. My favorite scene in the history of TV shows is the scene where she gets her period. Like, she is freaking out and she is super dramatic, but the drama is warranted because no one ever told her about her period. So, of course, she's like, what the F is going on? And then you do really feel for her because of that fact that she has no idea what's going on. But it is so funny. And then you also have, this empathy for her, but it's just hilarious with her reaction. So that's like one of my favorite scenes in just TV history. Though she also has a lot of trauma from being bullied at the orphanage that she was at before going to live with the Cooperts. And then she also has been exposed to some things that no kid should be exposed to. And when she was going when she was living, like, with this family and helping take care of the kids and helping around the house, they treated her horribly as well. And then as far as being socially unaware, she kinda told, like, some of the girls at the school, like, what she saw, but she didn't really understand that it was inappropriate. And they kind of, like, gave her the cold shoulder for a moment because they kinda were weirded out by it. So, yeah, she's had some trauma in her life, but despite all that, she never loses her childlike wonder and whimsy. So that kind of is really what makes you love her as a character. So, long story short, when I find a character to be annoying or insufferable, it doesn't add to the show for me because it makes me not want to continue watching the show depending on how often that character is in the scene. So if it's like a main character like Lorelai, I can't even finish it. Um Cassie wasn't too much like she's a main character, but there's so many other characters that I could still watch it. The reason why I don't know if I'm going to watch third season kinda has something to do with her, but there's other issues with that show I have as well. So, yeah, she is definitely part of the reason, and she was getting on my nerves. A deeply flawed character, again, they are just really fun to watch. They're flawed, they may be polarizing characters, so some people may love them, some may hate them, some may love to hate them, but they are always fun to watch, and then there may be some growth. You can see that there may be some growth in the future just based off the type of character it is, and the villain definitely gives the show or movie depth. It makes it more, layered, and the villain is there to contrast the protagonist usually. But what do you think about my category for bad characters? And do you agree with how I categorize these bad characters? Let me know. And that's all I have for today. Bye.